sure that most people watching this video are familiar with Stepford County Railway, whether you've played it yourself, seen someone else play it, or both. SCR has managed to become one of the most popular train simulators on the platform, surpassing over 100 million visits at the time this video was made. However, although this game is liked by the community, this doesn't mean the directors don't have a clean record. The higher-ups over at SCR have plenty of controversy to their names, and today we're going to be bringing it all to light. On January 8, 2025, SCR's community manager, Atomic, resigned from his position. He stated in his resignation letter that he resigned due to issues with the way the community was managed by the directors. The letter names these issues as a lack of staff, a lack of new hires, and a lack of communication from the directors, specifically the community director, Toby. Although Toby's role is to focus on the community, he often ignores the managers as he is too busy focusing on the game's development. When Toby was confronted about this, the managers ended up with the same result, a short period of better communication, and then back to ignoring the community. Adam states that during his time as community manager, he had never seen such a dysfunctional relationship between the community and leadership in any other organization, and that it isn't likely to be fixed under the existing management. Not long after this, there was a second resignation. Engagement manager Volttenn announced their resignation due to the same issues mentioned by Adam. In their resignation letter, they had additionally mentioned that they were feeling overwhelmed with work, yet unappreciated by the directors. I won't go into too much detail regarding their first resignation notice, as there is much more to be discussed in their second letter. About a month after their resignation, Volt released a follow-up letter further exposing the incompetence from the directors. In this letter, they go into much more detail regarding why they resigned. Starting with the community team, the letter states that they are incredibly understaffed and overwhelmed. According to Volt, each operations manager role aims to have at least 4 staff. At the time of writing, they had 3 staff spread across 2 roles, making it difficult to actually create change. When the staff had initially approached Toby about this issue, they were told that the hiring process needed to be delayed due to something Toby was working on that would supposedly fix the staffing issue. This something that Toby was working on was a new manager role called the Head of Community, which would handle 95% of Toby's job responsibilities. You heard that right, Toby, the man being paid £40,000 annually for working as community director, wants to give almost every responsibility of his to a volunteer who would be paid nothing. Throughout everything, even until the resignations, everything done has been done only to improve Toby's quality of life, with no consideration for anything else. The letter continues on to the development team. Volt states that there is essentially no communication between the community and development teams. When updates release, the community team aren't given any time to prepare, and the updates in question are clearly done without the community in mind. These updates, all created by Charlie and Toby, are only done for money, regardless of what the community really want. And yes, Charlie is still working behind the scenes at SCR, despite the allegations against him. We will go deeper into these allegations later on in the video. But have you noticed a trend in recent updates? An alarming amount of the new content isn't actually what the community wants. The players are still waiting for things such as working pantographs, a feature which has been anticipated since as early as 1.0, yet instead of this they are given overpriced game passes and operators which were supposedly never being added. You may remember when SCR reopened suggestions for boosters within the Discord server. While there were hundreds of suggestions made, none of them actually made it onto the developer roadmap. Those that did make it onto the roadmap had already been there, months or even years before suggestions reopened. Volt claims that even if development leadership think a suggestion is good, they'll only give it the same copy-pasted response while not adding it to the roadmap. Everything about the recent updates have only been done to hype up the community to speculate on what the update might be, only to then under-deliver the update. The new trains getting locked behind 1,000 Robux Game Pass, the new movement system adding hardly anything new, the cheap extension that ends up not being used after a week, these are all perfect examples of SCR under-delivering to the community. Before the allegations surrounding Charlie in 2022, the directors used to really pride themselves in their work. However, nowadays, it's more of a cheap cash grab being squeezed of every last penny. This leads on to the next point. Community and engagement managers are tasked with handling public relations. However, it's impossible to manage this when the development team completely ignores them. The development team leadership have let down the community with their management, but instead of taking the consequences themselves, they give it all to the managers. A key example of this is the introduction of the Long Trains Game Pass, which everyone on the team knew would be a controversial move. The launch of this Game Pass was incredibly mismanaged by the directors, but they just got a payday while they had the managers clean up their mess. Volttenn continues on to the project they worked on with Adam, known as the moderator role within the SCR Discord. For both of them, this was their first time adding a new role into the ranks, so naturally they were slightly confused on how to execute this. Multiple times they had asked Toby for help on simple things, such as what color the moderator role should be or how high up it should be in the ranks. Toby gave them nothing but complete silence. After about 2 months of waiting on Toby, Volttenn and Adam got fed up and instead went to the operations director, Ben. Ben had not only navigated the entire process with them, but also did it in just 4 hours. Toby is so incompetent at his job that a director from a completely different department had to do it for him. I can't even begin to imagine the shame Toby must felt. Since the community team has always had to take the fall for Toby and the other directors, they have potentially one of the most difficult jobs in SCR. Engagement staff frequently receive threats for updates or suggestions that they have no control over. Managers in operations departments constantly spread negative views regarding the team. It's gotten to a point where most supervisors tend to avoid them completely. Not long after the mass resignations of several supervisors and managers in early 2025, hiring for new community and engagement managers was announced. However, several candidates that were on the interview list had actually declined the interview due to the mass resignations. Nobody wanted to join the team, and nobody wanted to remain on the sinking ship. But guess what? Charlie, the man behind it all, genuinely believes that the community isn't important for the game's success. The community, the primary reason that the game ever got popular, the reason you're still making money despite being an accused child groomer, isn't important. The community team constantly worked to make sure SCR's name isn't tarnished, even through the allegations, the game passes, the server lockdowns. They were still hard at work. But no, surely they can't be important for the game. How delusional does a man have to be to believe this? That pretty much concludes Volt's story, but we aren't quite done with the resignations yet. After Adam and Volt both resigned, a good amount of supervisors and managers decided to resign with them. 6 supervisors announced their resignations within the days following Adam and Volt. This should have sent a clear message to Charlie and Toby, but has anything changed? I severely doubt it. When it comes to these managers, the community is still as toxic as ever to them. In all honesty, Charlie couldn't give a toss about what the community thinks. After all, he quote-unquote retired from the community side of SCR once the allegations came out. He's only there in the background to scoop up the tens of thousands of pounds he makes every year, on top of his manager job at LNER. On July 12, 2022, Twitter user Out of Context Transport made a series of tweets containing supposedly leaked images of a Snapchat conversation between Charlie and an unnamed minor. The user stated that Charlie engaged in inappropriate conversations with minors and was therefore not fit to run SCR, a game with a large child audience. Later that evening, Charlie announced his resignation from the community side of SCR. 2 days later, on the 14th, Charlie's Roblox and Discord accounts were rebranded to simply SCR Team Official. Today, almost 3.5 years after this incident, SCR is operating the same as it was before all this happened. I think it's insane how allegations this serious can just be swept under the rug while the community is distracted by new operators and extensions. This was serious, and it should never be forgotten by the community. Initially, I didn't plan on adding this into the video, but I may as well. From early 2022 to mid-2023, SCR's operations director was a user known as AsmeSolent. During the 17 months Asme was operations director for, they were under fire several times for abusing their powers. On multiple occasions, Asme was accused of abusing their moderation powers within the Discord server. The most common allegation against them was that they processed appeals of punishments that were given by them, causing a conflict of interest. When a senior dispatcher was demoted for leaking confidential material, ASME was criticized for failing to provide evidence with the moderation actions. However, following an appeal and review by ASME, all punishments were removed. In addition to this, ASME has also been criticized for matters regarding the demotion of well-known SCR content creator Squad FAM 9000, where ASME had approved the demotion using falsified evidence. Squad had eventually appealed this demotion and all punishments were removed. Just these two incidents on their own are bad enough, but it doesn't end there. In June 2022, ASME was criticized after they stated that the reason moderation was so bad within the Discord server was because of the size of the community. After this, users quickly discovered that under Discord's partner code of conduct, community size is not a valid reason to stop proper moderation. Overall, this ASME guy didn't have a clue on how the job worked, but I guess that means they'd fit right in at SCR. Hardly any of the directors know how to properly do their jobs in ways that would genuinely benefit the community. And what's worse, unless something is done by the community, SCR will only continue to go downhill from here. It's really a shame how one of the most popular games of its genre can turn sour so quickly.